and welcome to another episode of Underrated with Fran and Babs. I am Fran, and this week we are discussing two of Canada's finest, Alanis Morissette and Nelly Furtado. And like always, we will discuss if they are over or underrated. And this episode is dedicated to Taylor Hawkins and to Babs' cat, Le Tigre. I am currently in a campsite just outside Ottawa, where I spend most of my spring breaks, and so far there's only been one bear attack, so hopefully that's the last of the naughty wildlife. But anyway, enjoy the podcast.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, what are we calling this podcast?
Was it over underrated?
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
Hello, the internet, and welcome back to Over Underrated with Fran and Babs. Hello, Babs.
Hello, Fran. How are you today?
I am mid-tumble dry spin.
Oh, do you know what? This is very exciting for all our listeners.
Ooh.
I almost put the dishwasher on, and then I thought, no, it's going to interrupt with the recording. I'd have to close the door to the kitchen. So, I'm thinking of the sound quality. I'm thinking of this podcast. It's constantly on my mind.
If you want us to talk about more gadgets we've paused, let us know.
Yeah, we can start a Patreon where we describe all the chores we have to do every day. If that sounds like your kind of thing, let us know.
So, Babs, what have you been listening to this week?
Well, Fran, I am, fingers crossed, going to the UK tomorrow. So I have been listening to a playlist that me and some friends put together called Indie Disco, which are all the songs that we associate with our time at uni, all the indie disco songs from the mid to late noughties, and it has been quite nostalgic. I was especially enjoying listening to Slam by Pendulum and the Portuguese cover of Voodoo People. How about you?
I used to spin those classics.
Of course you did.
Back in 2007 when I was slightly cool. I have been listening to the Shout Out Louds.
You have mentioned them before, I think.
They are from Sweden.
Of course.
They had one album in the UK people kind of knew back in 2005, and then they were dismissed after that. But they're still going strong, and they have a new album out, came out last week, and it's rather pretty.
One for Sweden Part 2?
Could be. They definitely are, what you would say, underrated.
Well, there we go. And although you might not think either of the acts we're discussing today are underrated, definitely a lot of people have commented that in the YouTube videos that I've been watching. So today, the theme is, I would say, Canadian singer-songwriters. Mm-hmm. And we're discussing Alanis Morissette as overrated and Nelly Furtado as underrated.
I will not be pronouncing her name like that.
That's fine. I will not judge you. And just like you better, hey, English speakers, do not judge me for pronouncing her surname correctly, just as I won't judge you for not pronouncing it correctly. Okay, thank you very much. Why have we picked these two artists? So Nelly Furtado actually has way more Spotify listeners than Alanis Morissette. So Nelly Furtado has 14 million monthly, whereas Alanis Morissette has 5.6 million. But I would argue, and I don't know if you agree, that Alanis Morissette is probably better known and has more of a cultural cachet than Nelly Furtado, because they've both been going for a while, and definitely that their more recent stuff is less well known. But I think that Nelly Furtado is only known for a few things, whereas Alanis Morissette is known for a lot more, and I think people recognize her influence a lot more than they would with Nelly Furtado. Would you agree?
Yeah, and Jagged Little Pill sold 33 million and was I think the second biggest album of the 90s. So,
wow.
Although Nelly was successful, she never hit those numbers. And also, I guess when Alanis did it in 95, not many solo females were doing that sort of music.
Exactly.
So that's why
or if they were, they weren't, going mainstream. But yeah, you picked Alanis Morissette, I guess. So do you want to say why you picked her and your thoughts on her?
Well, she knows she's my favourite artist of all time. I'm not being ironic.
Whoa. The jokes start early.
Yeah, so, I was around in the 90s. Do you know what? I knew Ironic 1st. I think that was the first UK song I knew. And I strongly remember being in the back of a car on the way to Slough to go to a Quasar tournament.
Oh my God. Is this the most British suburban thing I've ever heard in my life?
And I was, like 15, 16, and the guys in front were maybe just 18. And they just bought the album and then acting as if it's the coolest thing they've ever had in their life. And then they played me You Oughta Know, and then when she swore, they looked at me like, yeah, swear words. So that's when I found out about Alanis properly, that she wasn't just singing about Ironic. And I've always loved You Oughta Know. I think it's a classic. But apart from that, a lot of the songs I found a bit grating. And I always found it fascinating how, as soon as the next decade moved on, she faded away very, very fast. And I never really knew why until today.
Until today. Okay, you have answers. Okay, I'm looking forward to those answers because, yeah, I totally agreed with you picking Alanis Morissette as overrated, because I think until about 5 years ago, I'd have been like, yeah, she's totally overrated, because I knew basically Ironic, Thank You, One Hand in My Pocket. That's pretty much it. And I felt that those songs were quite overplayed, and the videos too. But about 5 years ago, only about 5 years ago, did I discover You Oughta Know. And I discovered it because Britney Spears covered it. So that's, not the classic route for Alanis Morissette. And then I heard the song and I was like, this is absolutely fucking incredible. This is a modern classic. What is happening? How is this not as well known as Ironic and the others? But either I explored a bit further and didn't get very far, or I just thought that, and that was the end of it. I think she's quite important as an artist, as you said, not many women doing what she was doing were breaking through. The Enemy summarizes it quite nicely. They were talking about one of her later songs. They said that Alanis Morissette has been spilling her trauma in her music since long before that became a way of securing neat, PR-able hooks or a path to market yourself as a relatable artist. Jagged Little Pill covered sexual abuse, the villainization of sexually active young women, and the everyday gripes of someone in young adulthood. She took the idea of the angry young woman, previously confined to scenes like Riot Girl and grunge, into the mainstream and won 5 Grammys and sold millions of records despite attempts at misogynistic pigeonholing. So, her songs aren't just about love and depression straightforward. They're about all sorts of different issues, and her lyrics cut very deep sometimes. And I'm happy that she's had mainstream success, and she obviously means a lot to people. But like you, there are so many songs that I just didn't like, and wondered if was it just a coincidence that the poppier songs were the ones that were most popular, and is there more to her than that? Because I came in happy to revise my thinking of her as overrated, because I didn't really want to think that she was overrated.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't have any reason to hate Alanis Morissette, but when asked, can I think of another Canadian artist, I thought, well, Alanis fits the bill. She sold 73 million albums.
Wow, incredible.
Which means that she sold 40 million since Jagged Little Pill. This is interesting.
Maybe a bit less now, because Jagged Little Pill wasn't her first album.
Yeah, but, they always say discount the first 2 albums. It's another person.
Wait, I read that they're electropop, which I thought was interesting.
No. When I say electropop, you're thinking cool, but what they mean is like Debbie Gibson, Tiffany.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Interesting. No, but I'm up for that. I'm up for trying. But I don't think you included any songs from the playlist from those. No.
Well, because she always says, that was not her. That was her being forced to do something else.
Right.
When she became Alanis Morissette, was Jagged Little Pill. That's her first album. Before that, she was had a Svengali telling her what to do, where to dance, that kind of thing.
God.
Which is why she's kind of tried to forget that ever happened, and that's why a lot of her lyrics come from that period when she'd have like sleazy producers coming onto her when she's like 15 or 16.
Yeah, it sounds pretty gross. And yeah, you can say a lot of things about Jagged Little Pill, but you can't deny it comes from the heart. Like all the songs from it, like. I would not be able to believe that it wasn't her writing the lyrics. It feels very, very personal, and I think a lot of people identify with that. But we know about our heathenness when it comes to lyrics, and for me, lyrics has never been enough. As much as I appreciate some of her lyrics, so yeah, shall we get into the music?
Overrated.
We start off with Ironic, because that was the first song I ever heard. So we're in 1995. We have MTV. There's that car. Those 4 different Alanises. Turns out it's played by her. She hasn't got siblings. Although actually, she actually does have a twin brother. There you go. That's a fun fact.
Oh, didn't know that. Fun fact indeed.
Fun fact indeed. And yeah, it was not going to make the album because they thought it's kind of forgettable.
Interesting.
It was
the song that's overplayed to death is forgettable.
But that happens quite a few times, doesn't it? When the song they put on the last minute becomes the biggest hit. But yeah, I've always thought the verse is a bit throwaway silly, and then it has that massive chorus, which is a bit like 4 Non-Blondes, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's of its time.
And that makes it. Yeah, without that big chorus, it's just like rain. It wouldn't be a hit at all, I don't think. And it's got. I've always found the mid to late kind of weird, like she's singing it in a different language. Life is a funny baby, and she goes.
But she does this a lot. So this is what I found. I like Alanis when she's speaking quickly. Is what I've discovered.
Okay.
In this playlist, which is not something I would think about anyone.
I like whispering Geordies.
Yeah.
I like fast-speaking Alanis.
I like fast-speaking Canadians. This is what we're discovering. Yeah, this song, it's fine. I would never choose to listen to it, but it's one that, of course, it's fun to sing along when you're doing karaoke. Listening to it with 2022 ears, I really like her harmonizing with herself in the chorus. The fact you've got her kind of keeping the bass line, I guess, and then singing on top of herself is really nice. Obviously, the lyrics are very catchy, and it's a song from 1995, a long time ago now, and people still reference it. People still talk about it, so it's clearly stayed in the public consciousness. And yeah, it was interesting to read about the Jagged Little Pill. Like she wrote it with this guy called Glenn Ballard. She did most of the vocal takes in 1 or 2 takes, which is incredible. And they worked in 12 or 16-hour shifts. So clearly, they had a chemistry, they came together, and it worked really well. So I'm sure, especially given that I think he played all the instruments with a few guest stars that we'll get into. Clearly, they worked very well together, and it's good that she could concentrate on the vocals because, her voice is amazing. Her voice is really, really good and strangely soulful and meaningful.
The reason she chose to do it in 1 or 2 takes was because in her former career, she got sick of having to do the same line 45 times in the studio.
Right.
And that's why she said, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it loose and free, and you get 1 or 2 takes at most. And it works.
You feel that. Yeah, you definitely feel that. But yeah, it was massively overplayed, and I did not have MTV in 95, but I know the video very well and saw it. So yeah, not knowing really what you thought about Alanis Morissette, I was like, are you using this to make the point that she's overrated or not? I would personally with this particular song.
I guess people also thought she's 21. What the fuck does she know about rain on your wedding day? And and that sort of, and also, yeah, we know that half of it isn't ironic, but it doesn't matter. It's about life is crap sometimes, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, it tells a story. You don't forget the lines of it's like meeting the man of your dreams and then meeting his beautiful wife, and the way she enunciates as well. It's you feel it. You feel her sadness, her melancholy.
But yeah, moving on to
more sadness and melancholy.
Well, I mean, spoiler alert, there's a lot of sadness, melancholy, and anger. It's Alanis Morissette. We're going to the complete opposite time frame and to 2020. This almost made my 2020 best of.
I'm glad it didn't, because now we have an opportunity to talk about Alanis in more depth.
And I think mainly because I was not expecting to, one, hear an Alanis Morissette song come up, and two, that was quite decent and was unexpected. I think it's a bit like Kate Bush. It's a very haunting melody. It's got this beautiful piano and cello creating this atmosphere, and it could almost be Massive Attack.
Yeah, well, I have trip hop comments in other parts of this episode,
and it's about predators and music again, because her favourite subject. Yeah,
I mean, fair enough. I didn't realise she'd been so done over so young. I mean, I feel like this is the playlist you've created with the most contrast. Like, the difference from song to song is enormous. And I had not heard Alanis Morissette since Thank You. And to hear this, it starts with a very mournful piano, and her voice is very mournful as well. It was such a contrast to ironic, and it made me think like, oh, okay. Like, Fran's clearly showcasing the variety here. And, you know, this song is 25 years on. I thought it was quite a filmic song. You know, you've got sort of Western style guitars and the strings. I appreciated the versatility. I appreciated how clearly she's not afraid to take risks when it comes to her music, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. Like, I enjoyed getting to know it, but I didn't save it to my list.
That's just fine. I mean, look, it's usually one of us is rooting for the artist, but for me, I don't own any Alanis Morissette. If Babs doesn't like a song, it's not going to hurt me in any way.
Having just listened to the trip hop episode, I'm still pained about sneaker pimps. No, but yeah, I was, like I said, glad to learn and listen. And I will take this moment as well to say, whatever you think of her album titles are beautiful. Like, so here's hang on, I've 8 of her albums. So you've got Jagged Little Pill, immediately creating atmosphere. Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie, which at the time, I mean, 98, I would have been 9 years old. I was like, oh, this is big words that I must learn.
Although that's a bit like the 1975s. They'd have a similar album title these days.
Oh, but wasn't it like, don't cry because you're so beautiful when you do... Okay, I sound so old. I'm like, oh yeah, the new band with the pretty boy that I don't know about. Oh, a very long album title. But okay, yeah, this was the 1975. You've got Under Rug Swept. You've got Feast on Scraps, So-Called Chaos, Flavors of Entanglement, Havoc and Bright Lights, and the album this comes from, Such Pretty Forks in the Road. So, creating a picture with her words.
Yeah, she hasn't gone for Alanis.
Alanis too. Alanis, the return.
So moving on to Hand Clean, which I think was probably the last song I remember existing, like before listening to The Reckoning. This is 2002. And I think this is gonna be controversial, that this is her best song because I mean, it's another bitter song.
No shit.
Surprise.
Bitter is putting it mildly. Yeah.
You know, and it's like it's just me now, and you know, the video is pretty awesome. Have you seen the video?
I have not seen the video.
It's basically her career. It's like it starts off of, you know, her being a pop star, and you know, fast forwarding to her playing guitar, and fast forwarding to her being in a band. But yeah, it's got a really catchy hook and a chorus. I remember when it came out, it was never ever played, and I remember just discovering randomly and thinking, oh, is this actually Alanis Morissette? She's still existing, because I hadn't heard anything for 4 years since Thank You, and there wasn't much, you know, fanfare for this when it came out in the UK. But reading about it, I think it sold maybe a couple of million, so it didn't do too badly. But yeah, it's about an affair she had when she was 14 years old with a record executive, but she's never mentioned his name. But I mean, how many producers has she worked with? Can't be that many.
So I knew this song, but I'd totally forgotten about it. I have no idea how I knew this song at all. Whether did I hear it in a film? Was it one of the songs I discovered when I went on my Alanis tour after listening to You Oughta Know? Yeah, there's a really interesting use of guitars here. And as a general rule for this playlist, I like Alanis when there's more guitars. I think sometimes even though it's melodic, she often is using a lot of guitars, and there'll be like an acoustic guitar and then a rhythm guitar and a lead guitar. And I really like it here. And I really had never paid attention to the lyrics, which are totally about a pedo. And you know, listening to it with that in mind, it's quite interesting how her delivery is quite innocent. Like, she has almost a childlike voice, and she's speaking very fast, so we know that we like that. And I thought that was an interesting choice to make, because it's like, obviously she's speaking as if she's the man, right? And yeah, you know, I also read that this was about a relationship that, well, can you call it a relationship? It's grooming. And she's also said that multiple men committed statutory rape when she was 15. So she clearly had a terrible time, and it's really good that at least she can talk about it. But yeah, it's really horrible lyrics. I think the worst one for me is, because you're such a pretty thing when you're done up properly. I might want to marry you one day if you watch that weight and keep your firm body. And yeah, I was trying to think, like, what's the modern equivalent that I've heard? And I don't know if you know the sexually explicit rapper Cupcake, Fran, but she has a song called Pedophile. And it's like, yeah, that is That is much more, you know, in your face. This is, you know, classic getting heavy topics in the guise of a pop song, but it's a pop song, but it's definitely a sophisticated pop song, and the way it builds to that chorus of "Wipe your hands clean of me." On the music, I think again a bit like Ironic, it's fine, but I'm not going to listen to it. You know, I enjoyed rediscovering it, but I'm not going to listen to it again.
It's also the first album she completely wrote by herself.
Oh, good.
And produced as well. So
good.
You know, I'm impressed. But yeah, I watched the Jagged documentary which came out 2020, and now she's saying she hates it. But the reason she says she hates it is because she thinks that she was in a bad place during lockdown, and they chose her, you know, talking about her past issues. But then she sings about it in every song, so I don't understand why that's such a case of it.
Well, yeah, I guess I've always wondered about this. Like, if you write about a breakup that you had 25 years ago, and you're still forced to relive it night after night, like, I'm sure that at some point you sort of can disassociate from it, or you can apply it to other things going on in your life. But maybe other times, you know, lots of us were vulnerable in lockdown, and if there was like a big anniversary for well, yeah, I guess 2020 would have been 25 years, right, since Jagged Little Pill. It's that thing of like, you probably don't want to be reminded of it all the time when as it turns out, she's had loads of other albums since, so maybe it was that. Yeah,
well, she said that she wanted it to be more about the album, and then they looked into other things. But I guess it's hard to discuss her career and not mention it, isn't it, as well? So.
But I think it's also that thing that a lot of female artists talk about, where male artists writing about similar themes, it's not normally presumed that it's autobiographical, whereas with female artists it is. And I'll get into, with another song, I'll get into like a modern artist where that keeps happening too. And I mean, the thing is, I think it is very clearly autobiographical here. But yeah, that's not all there is to it. And it's like, you should be talking about just like, the themes, rather than just being like, what happened to you? And especially with one of the songs coming later, there's so much speculation about who it's about, even now. And it must be quite annoying to not be able to move on from that.
So also, you mentioned eating. She said that when she was doing her first album, they told her to come in to do some vocals, and then it turned out that it wasn't to do her vocals, it's to do her weight, and she was told she had to go on a diet, and apparently she's had eating issues over the past 30 years because of that. So imagine being 21 and having all that trauma. I mean, I don't know if she had therapy or anything, and then becoming the biggest star in the world. It must have been so hard to endure at that age.
Yeah, and so young as well, because with Nelly Furtado she talks about that too, because she became quite famous when she was quite young. And I mean, I can come back to that, but Nelly Furtado was like, in a way it was bizarre, because it's everything you've ever wanted, but at the same time you're so young, you're like, well, if this is happening now, then what's next? Because I think you normally know it's not going to last forever. So I mean, especially if she was having a bad time in lockdown. And I mean, the next song that you've picked also talks about other issues that she struggled with. To be reminded constantly of a traumatic time, or to have your music framed only through the lens of trauma rather than the music itself. Yeah, it must be frustrating.
And I guess she got into this album not expecting big things. So, she wasn't writing a pop album, so she probably thought it would just be like an independent album and maybe sell a couple of thousand. So it must be even harder to not even assume that's going to happen before you know it. You're bigger than when you're...
And I didn't know she was so young. Like, if you'd asked me to guess what age she was, I'd been like, I don't know, mid to late 20s? No, 21. And she wrote a lot of it when she was 19, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, the lyrics-wise, it's someone in the mid-30s of that experience.
Yeah. It's like big words, big themes, definitely.
So moving on to other big themes, we have 2019's Reasons I Drink. I had never heard. Basically, I just scattergunned. I chose singles over the last 25 years, and then I just discovered it at the same time as you did, Babs. So I never heard this until yesterday. It's got like Ben Folds piano vibes to it.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And we're talking about addictions. It's not her best work. The chorus is lacking. I'm never a fan of a chorus which relies on woos. If all you're doing is woo woo woo, yeah, come on.
I don't mind. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes.
Or a chorus which repeats the same word again and again and again and again. That's the one. But randomly was number 1 in Poland.
Excellent. Well done, Poland. I mean, that's a country that I'm sure drinks more heavily than the average when vodka is one of your national drinks.
Again, she's being very honest and very open, and you know, and I reading the comments on YouTube, a lot of people really enjoyed her talking about this subject. Yeah.
So again, such a gear shift from Hans Clean. So I was like, what is Fran trying to do to me here emotionally? There's a lot going on. She has a much lower voice at the beginning because I guess she must have a massive range, like a massive octave range. But I would associate her with a higher pitch, I guess, rather than this. And I felt that this was a song that was clearly adapting to modern pop, especially the build to the chorus. If you shorten this could be a Eurovision entry. I felt. Musically, not my cup of tea. I think because I could appreciate the modern production and the modern sound, but lyrically, definitely, I thought it was great. You know, she says these are the reasons I overdo it. I've been working since I can remember, since I was single digits. Now, even though I've been busted, I don't know where to draw the line because that groove has gotten so deep. Whew. Strong shit. And there's an Enemy article which said about this song, there's still an urgency and rawness to Morissette. She's still mining her life's experiences, using her insight into addiction to explain the comfort the very things that are bad for you can bring. And she said that alcohol is a secondary addiction after her eating disorder. So bless you, Alanis. I hope you're doing well. I want you to be doing well. It made me sad. It made me sad, and it made me hope that, you know, she's kind of come through it on the other side, and now that things are opening up again, she's doing a bit better.
Yeah, and in the video, it's her former selves in an AA meet.
She loves mining we'll come to that later. Like her music videos are very creative.
Underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Underrated.
So doesn't it? And then we're going back to where it began. Her first single, You Oughta Know. And this nice story, like, so when they took us to K-pop, K-rock even, one of the biggest. I was going to say K-pop.
What?
I can't get K-pop out of my mind.
Can't wait to see You Oughta Know dance practice.
It's out there. I'm sure TikTok have done it.
I know what I'm going to be looking for afterwards.
So they took to K-rock and said, "Oh, you might want to listen to this new artist." And apparently the producer was like, "Jesus Christ!" She then took it into the DJ booth and said, "This is the next single. It's somebody called Alanis Morissette." And then it went crazy, and people were calling in constantly. So this, out of nowhere, became massive and started. And then that's when she then had to hire a band, including Taylor Hawkins.
Really?
Not know that.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. So Taylor Hawkins was her drummer for that tour.
Oh, incredible!
And the people who supported her on that tour was Radiohead.
Amazing.
Ben's era Radiohead, and she could hear them writing OK Computer in the dressing room. So some of OK Computer was written on tour with Alanis Morissette.
That is, especially given how grumpy and fame shy Radiohead were, to be touring with it's rock, but the pop star of the moment. That is
I don't know how many dates, but yeah, and then the Foo Fighters did some dates, and that's how they met Taylor.
Incredible. Facts. Very, very glad you watched that documentary.
Yeah, she said it was quite hard because also she was like singing about his feminist themes. Meanwhile, her backing band were fucking as many people as they possibly could, and they would, and their guitar technicians were handing out backstage passes, and then Alanis had no idea this was happening during her shows.
Oh, I think it must be so tough to be one of the few women on the road when that's happening. Like, I remember, I might have told this story before on the podcast, but, Charlotte Hatherley obviously was in Ash and she was the only woman. And she was like, actually, they were very supportive and it was fine. But the next band she went on tour with was Bat for Lashes. And she said that she, like, backstage before the first gig, they were like handing out healing crystals or something, and she was like, "Oh, this is very different from touring with a bunch of smelly men, basically." So yeah, and again, she's still 21. That's yeah.
She said, and also it's hard for her being 21 and being a boss of these like guys. But they said, "What's the point of stacking them?" Because she said that's what men are like. If she gets rid of them, it's hard for other guys who would be like exactly the same. It's just kind of sad that she expected it really from guys by then.
Yeah, I mean, and she paved, she paved the way for a lot of modern artists to not have to go through that. So thank you, Alanis.
But yeah, reading it on the internet, I don't know if this is true, I hope it is, but Dave Navarro from James Addiction played the guitar and Flea plays the bass on this.
Yep.
And all we had was the guide track and we just did a jam and that came out.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't particularly hear Dave Navarro on guitar, but when you hear that it's Flea on bass, you're like, yeah, it makes sense. And yeah, what a bass line. I hadn't even realised that there's a bit where she says, it was a slap in the face, and then Flea slaps the bass, and you're like, oh, beautiful. But yeah, as I said, this song is incredible. And I sent you a video of her isolated vocals that she recorded in one take. I so many things going on. So much emotion that you can feel in the voice, and that's probably why it sounds so good. And I think what's incredible about this song is how it goes from the restraint in her voice at the beginning, where she's like, I'm happy for you, I wish nothing but the best for you, and then suddenly it starts unraveling, and it builds and it builds and it builds. And there's so many classic moments in this song, like her going, it's not fair, like you can feel it. And the only other person I enjoy doing that, apart from Alice, is Lana Del Rey does that in Off to the Races. Only two women, only two people I enjoy doing that. And how it just keeps going and it keeps building, and to the final chorus, because when it goes into the final chorus, normally when she sings it, it then pauses, so she says, you want to know, it pauses. But actually, on the final one, it just continues. And then there's this other guitar layered upon it. So there's this kind of, hope and finality. And I think it's a brilliant song, and I would like to know more Alanis songs that are like this, although there's one or two that you've included which I think are on a similar level.
There's a great cover from Group Love, who we've spoken about on the podcast as well. Check it out. But I can imagine the Chili Peppers even doing this, because like a bit when she goes, and hope Betty made it could also be like a bit of like a rap for Anthony Kiedis could kind of do as well.
Yeah, but yeah, the way that she does it is, because the love that you gave me, he would be like, because the love that you gave me, I wasn't able to make it, and that wouldn't be as good. I don't.
Yeah, and he would have was talking about like chicken and karate and whatever crap he talks about, and
of course California. But yeah, so there's we talked about the speculation of who she's talking about. So it's widely rumoured to be this comedian called Dave Coulier. There's even someone who was on a TV show with him who said he was there when Alanis Morissette made the call that interrupted him in the middle of dinner, that she references. But she's always been, she's never kind of admitted it. She says, I never talked about who my songs were about, and I won't, because when I write them, they're written for the sake of personal expression. So with all due respect to whoever may see themselves in my songs, and it happens all the time, I never really comment on it because I write these songs for myself, not other people. So yeah, absolutely fair enough. And, as it just reminds me of Taylor Swift, really. Like Taylor Swift is someone who writes very emotional songs from the heart, has dated a lot of people, and is criticized for it, and it's joked about it, like, oh, like she's broken up and she's going to write another album. And it's like, why is she not allowed to do that when that's exactly what I was trying to think of a male example, but for some reason the only one that came to mind was Sufjan Stevens, and I'm like, that doesn't feel like an appropriate one. But yeah, whatever. John Mayer, there we go. Like John Mayer, John Legend, insert your own John here. Like no one would ever criticize a man for being like, oh, you only write about the women you fuck. Led Zeppelin did a lot of that, and they don't get criticized. So
Blur did a whole album, and Blur did 13. Isn't that about this breakup with
Justin Fishman, right? Yeah, and what a great album it is. So yeah, there's lots of people who it's rumored to be, but I understand. When it's the risk of being so expressive, so emotional. These lyrics hit really hard. They are incredible breakup lyrics, and I'm sure lots of people going through breakups can identify with them. But just because that's the case doesn't mean that you should constantly be digging into it, especially if she doesn't want to. Yeah,
it's a little bit of a shame that was the only time I remember her being that angry and that rocky on the album.
Yeah, that's what I thought, right?
This is why I put a track on here later on, it's kind of identifies a little bit more of that. But moving on to Underneath in 2009. Again, I had never heard this, wasn't unaware she even had an album out in 2009. This is, again, slightly different. It's got like a drum loop, delicate guitars, and like some swirling Simpson verse, and then elevates to this like kind of like a pop chorus, although it sounds a little bit like Snow Patrol Coldplay with that sort of like down striking electric guitar kind of thing we all had in the mid-noughties to get like an anthemic chorus, which kind of taints it for me. But it's got some nice ideas. I guess is he trying to be mainstream again, or just doing what she wants? I don't know. I think this is her last album with Maverick, so I don't know if it's like one last chance of glory. But yeah, it's fine, but I would probably not get back to it.
Yeah, so when it started, I was like, oh, this is a really interesting beginning. There's some subtle acoustic guitars and percussion. Her voice is very light again, but I really hate the chorus because it goes full pop, and I was just like, ugh. But I was thinking that for me, I listened to it twice. With repeated listenings, I'm sure it could attain the same level for me as Ironic, of like, it's not my kind of music, but there is something very catchy about it. And I'm sure that if I associated it with weddings, dancing in the club to it, whatever, I probably would like it. But yeah, on this podcast, I do not.
She always says that she loves dancing, but sadly, I don't know one song you can dance to by Alanis Morissette. Maybe there's one up there. Please let me know.
Well, I mean, I guess some of the songs you've picked later on are quite rocky. You can definitely dance to rock. I definitely dance to rock. Not well, but I do.
So, moving on to a song that many people may know. For some people, probably the last song they remember, which is Thank You, Internet. Thank you, podcast. Thank you, Babs, my co-host. I cut out.
No, please don't. Please don't cut that out. Please don't cut that out.
What are you thankful for today, Babs?
What am I thankful for? I am thankful for the Eurostar train, which will take me to the UK tomorrow. I am grateful for the big hoop earrings I'm wearing, which we will get to later. I'm grateful for my napping cat, who is just very much in her little spot. That's what I'm thankful for. What about you?
Well, we are dedicating this podcast to the Tigra.
Oh, the Tigre, yeah. My beloved cat, the Tigre, named after the band. I was going to say sadly. That's how sad I am. Sadly passed away last week, bless her. So, it's a bit less riot girl in the house. And she was the active one. So Kim, who's named after Kim Gordon Deal, she's a very chilled cat, probably reflecting, also the advancing ages of Kim Gordon and Kim Deal. I'm
sure she would be happy with discussing female rock stars.
Yeah, of course. But yeah.
So, 1998, after the behemoth of a Jagged Little Pill, how do you follow that? By doing something completely different. Basically.
Very, very different.
So yeah, it has that beautiful, I assume it's a keyboard. It could be some sort of, I don't know what it is, a treated piano. That video of her stark naked, walking
with
around
very long hair,
like Jesus. So I instantly love this. I remember people at university were going, oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Like, people thought that she's gone down a pop route instantly, but it's not pop at all.
No.
It's got it's a catchy hook, that piano thing, but the song isn't. No, it's ain't Britney Spears we're talking about. Listen to it again. Obviously, it's dealing with trauma as per. But yeah, it's a class song. Although I feel maybe the drums are quite heavy in it. Maybe if it had more of like a Gary Jules Mad World kind of production, it could have worked a little bit better, bit more haunting for me. But how about you, Babs?
Well, you'll be delighted to hear, Fran, that the note I wrote for the drums is some very trip-hoppy percussion that I never paid attention to. Yeah, I remember this song very well. I don't think I had ever heard this song without the video. And again, I feel like the discussion of this song was a discussion where they were taking the piss out of her being naked in the video, and there are a million parodies. Listening to it without the video, this song is so much better than I realised. I really never want to watch this with the video again. I really like the synths. I really like her voice. I think also it's almost like a direct response to You Oughta Know, because that's obviously kind of a lashing out in anger kind of song. Whereas this one is all about, how about me not blaming you for everything? How about me enjoying the moment for once? How about good it feels to finally forgive you? How about grieving it all at one time? And talking about what she's thankful for. So yeah, it's a beautiful response and a beautiful contrast to the song, one of the songs that made her the biggest. But
can anybody name the song that followed this? I can't.
No, I can't.
It does seem to be like "Thank You" was her comeback single, and then
Yeah.
that was the end. The curtain went over her forever until like maybe 4 years for me. Like I don't remember anything else apart from that album, or from the album, apart from this one song. Weirdly, so was it terrible or was it just not played? I don't know.
Or I think just "Thank You" was overplayed, and that was the single, and that was it. And yeah, it's funny because it actually didn't click until you said it. Hands Clean came after this. I would have guessed Hands Clean would have been around the same time as Jagged Little Pill, and this would have been afterwards, but no.
4 long years. Listen, so obviously we are discussing Alanis Morissette. I've not listened to all 7 albums back to front. You know, so let me know.
Done a Chris.
So so let me know if that album has some other brilliant tracks. But single wise, speaking as a British person, that was the only song we ever heard from that album. But it did sell like 2 or 3 million. But then it might be the case that people bought it just because they had bought Jagged Little Pill and assumed, you know.
And I mean, I'm presuming she has an extremely loyal fan base as well. Fingers crossed.
But then moving on to a B-side. Do you know it's a B-side?
Yes, I did know it was a B-side. I was surprised.
I didn't when I picked it.
As
But
in,
hey.
I knew it because I researched it, not from like from my mind.
So yeah, this is from Under Swept, the remaining tracks. She made a follow-up album that I've forgotten the title of.
Feast on Scraps.
And what a delightful scrap this is. This is Unprodigal Daughter from 2003. It's about her life moving from Canada after being a pop star to LA. But yeah, there's actually a musical in Broadway called Jagged Little Pill. This is also in a musical, and the musical version's quite amazing. I guess it makes sense because, like, if you're doing a narrative of Alanis Morissette, you need the song when she moved from Canada to LA. So this soundtrack's it. But I think it reminds me of Sinead O'Connor, her vocals, and I was listening to the live version, and it's a lot heavier. So if you can check out the live version or the musical version, I suggest so. But what did you think, Babs?
I love this. I thought this was bringing the best of Alanis Morissette together. There's loads of electric guitars. There's clear like Indian music influences. And it was like my favourite new song so far that you'd introduced me to. And I was very surprised to see that it was a B-side and on this kind of random compilation, because I just thought, like, what? Why? why has this been consigned to that? This I think would have been really popular. This song and the next song that you've got as well, I think it reminds me of, you know, Hull and other, you know, female-fronted, female primary bands from the area, but with a modern twist. And I think her fans and the mainstream would have lapped that up. So I'm at a loss as to why this was consigned to a B-side.
The only thing I can think of, listening to Hands Clean, which is, I guess, a bit more pop-orientated, maybe it didn't fit the format. Like, if it's more of a poppy album, or did it stick out too much? I mean,
You Oughta Know and Ironic are completely different.
Yeah.
And they both did very well. So, you know, she has form.
But hey, the fans love it.
Yeah.
And we love it, so it's all good.
We do.
And
Excellent.
so speaking of rockier side of Alanis, I tried to find another version of You Oughta Know, and I discovered 8 Easy Steps, which was a single. I had no idea. The video is absolutely brilliant.
Yes, I saw it.
It goes in reverse of her career with a lip sync.
Yeah, so yeah, all her previous music videos with her face superimposed on it, singing the lyrics from this song, and also Matt LeBlanc as well, singing the lyrics from this song, because he was in is it Walk This Way? Walk Away. So Matt LeBlanc was in Walk Away, a video from 1991.
Once again, she was only 16, and they're kissing it, so nice.
Ooh, ooh.
So check out the video if you've not seen it. But yeah, this is like the heavier side of her. I heard it's kind of like a bit like pop punk in a way. I guess it could have maybe some more guitar solos. It's in like 2 minutes 50, so it's very short and sweet. It's like in boom with the killer chorus and get the fuck out of it. But I did like it, and I will save it to my collection.
Fran, I am in total agreement for once. I love this. Again, the guitars, the synth guitars, the Indian musical influences coming through. She's talking very quickly. To me, it sounded like Madonna Ray of Light era as well, I thought. And that is a great pop era, William Orbit
Well,
is.
she was on her label, Maverick.
There we go. I didn't realise that Madonna was also on there. And the lyrics are just so good, because the aim is, it's like these, not the aim, the the song is about all the mistakes that she's made, and she's teaching you that in 8 Easy Steps is kind of like how to ruin your life. So there's lyrics like how to stay paralyzed by fear of abandonment, how to defer to men in solvable predicaments, how to control someone to be a carbon copy of you, how to hate women when you're supposed to be a feminist, how to play all pious when you're really a hypocrite, etc., etc. So it's, yeah, again, she's really pouring her heart out, and it's fantastic. And to have those lyrics with that music and that video, it's a really great song. Thank you for introducing me to it.
But why was this not popular?
I don't know, and many YouTube commenters also don't know, it seems. So go and listen to it, definitely.
I wonder if because albums following Jagged Little Pill weren't as big, people then started to dismiss them and buy. Was like it's like 2005 or something?
2004.
Yeah, so by then people are like, oh, it's only Alanis Morissette, who cares? I don't know if that was the case, but yeah, check it out, guys. And then ending with another song from the big album, we have Perfect, which was the first song she ever wrote. I believe she wrote it with her producer in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And they played that to Lowe's Notes Studios and got knocked back. And then the guy from Maverick said, yes, please. And instantly harder. This shows off her vocal range, and, you know, it must be a refreshing change to be singing this style after singing like Paula Abdul style pop previously. Although, for some reason, the opening line sounds like wet, wet, wet. And I can't get it out of my mind. I think in 2005 she did like an acoustic version of the album, and this is pretty cool. So yeah, so no one's perfect, not even Ricky Martin. But did you think this is a perfect song, or
I wondered why you'd included this song, because it's I wondered again if it was to show off her range and her versatility, because yeah, this is totally different to Ironic or You Oughta Know on Jagged Little Pill. It's slow and acoustic, and I wondered if that was Flea on bass again. Do you know?
I know. Well, all I know is that she just wrote it with the producer, and that was basically it. Like, I don't actually know how Dave and first-time bassist Dave even happened, because like she wasn't a known artist, and they're massive stars. So
I mean, they're massive stars, but you need to make money by being a session musician, right? Like there's lots of artists who guest on and play on other people's songs sometimes that you don't even realise, like Josh Homme. A lot of the time it's like, oh yeah, he's playing guitar on this, and you're like, really? Why? Like, you know, he plays guitars on like Peaches songs, where it's like, I wouldn't expect him to be doing Peaches, and you know, he's not even sort of featured. It's not Peaches featuring Josh Homme, but there we go. I wasn't a fan of this song. It was a little bit too slow for me, but again, just looking at it from the, oh wow, she's a versatile woman, she writes a lot of different types of songs, sure.
And why not? So Alanis, is she overrated, Babs?
I don't think she's overrated. I think her influence is undeniable. I think, if anything, okay, so the period where she was most successful, it was crazy successful. If I ruled the world, I would have rather she had less success but more continuous, because I have not heard a song that I've known since Hands Clean, and that was 20 years ago. So maybe she might have been everywhere, and I could absolutely get on board with that, because she was everywhere in the late 90s. But she clearly has some absolute bangers from the early noughties, and it's made me want to go and explore her back catalogue more. So no, I think if anything, she's actually underrated if you look at her global discography.
Yeah, it's hard, because like the album We All Know Her, I'm not a fan of, so it hurts me that sold 30. Like, we discussed Talking Heads, their entire career they sold 10 million albums. Her one album sold 3 times that many albums, which is insane. So if you're gonna go by that album, she's overrated. But yeah, like just me skimming over her back cat for the past 20 years, I was surprised that I liked a lot of these songs. I thought I was gonna struggle. And me just choosing a collection of singles, none of them I actually hate, and I've discovered 3 or 4 pretty decent songs. So yeah, I will probably check out her other albums. So I would say that no, she's not overrated, and she's obviously doing big numbers around the world outside of the UK and America, a bit like the artist we're going to speak about next. Yeah.
Well, it's nice, isn't it, that we both kind of thought, yeah, Alanis Morissette overrated, and look, we've both changed our minds, we've softened a bit. I wonder if that will happen with the next artist, though.
Hey, podcast lovers. Now available. A new podcast experience featuring exclusive miniseries like Food Faves, and all new series that takes a fun look at everyone's real first true love, food. Milky Way Marvels, a lighthearted astronomy series where we explore the fascinating wonders of our galaxy. Pop culture icons, an entertaining, nostalgic look back at various nouns in popular culture. Plus more. Relax, enjoy, listen, laugh, and maybe even learn. Podcast, presented by Sonic Embassy. Now streaming everywhere you listen.
Access quick links to your favorite places to listen now at solo.to/Sonic Embassy.
Underrated.
So, Nelly Furtado, Babs has chosen as underrated. Why? But why?
Okay, well, she's of Portuguese origin, okay? There aren't too many of us that are famous, you know. There's another famous Canadian who shares part of my surname, Shawn Mendes, but I'm not a huge fan. However, I am a friend of... I'm a friend.
Wow! Get on the podcast!
Tô Nelly, tudo bem? No, I am a fan of Nelly Furtado. I think, yeah, and I'm, let's say, a more recent fan of Nelly Furtado. Yes, of course, like, you know, I was following her big hits. But at some point in the last, I'd say, 3-4 years, I was like, what else has she done? And I went and delved into her back catalogue and I was like, oh, she's done a lot more and it's all very interesting. So I think she is probably seen as like, oh, a noughties pop star, but she's so much more than that. She grew up listening to quite eclectic music, R&B, pop, drum and bass, Portuguese music, Spanish music, Indian music, bossa nova. And she had very humble beginnings because her mum worked in a hotel and hired her as a chambermaid. And that comes across when she's interviewed as well. So I think, you know, just music aside for a second, you know, her cultural background is interesting and she seems like a very nice and very intelligent person. She, as I said, has way more listeners than Alanis Morissette. But I think she would broadly be known for I'm Like a Bird and then 1 or 2 songs from that era and then her album Loose from 2006, which are all fantastic. But she's so much more than that. And I was inspired to put her forward as a suggestion when we did the hip hop episode because obviously she featured on a Jurassic 5 song. And I found this playlist that looked at all her different collaborations. It's so diverse. So some that I haven't included: Tiesto, James Morrison, Blood Orange, N.E.R.D., Andrea Bocelli. She's much more than I'm, yeah, like I said, the noughties Nelly. And what I didn't realise either, so Loose, an album, and I'm sure we'll get into it, you know, it's an album that's a very sort of sexy album, very urban album. She recorded that after being a mother. And she says that she did that because she felt sexier. Like, she literally said, my butt was big or I had more curves. And I was like, how amazing is that? And it's kind of a shame that not more was made of that at the time because she was slut-shamed to shit. You know, she was really like, oh my God, she's selling out because, you know, she felt like she needed to make sexy music or whatever. And actually, when you hear her talk about it, it sounded like quite a high-pressure environment where she was staying with her small child in a hotel room, go and work crazy hours with Timberland. He'd then go to the club when she'd go back and like breastfeed and come back and do it again at 5 a.m. So she is versatile, multi-layered, multi-genred, multilingual, pretty unique. And yeah, even, you know, she's had quite big breaks between her recent albums, and hasn't done an album since 2017. And she's like done performance art. She's worked at her friend's record shop. She took playwriting classes, worked at a record store, ran a label. I think, yeah, she's a Renaissance woman. What about you, Fran?
So yeah, I first discovered her when she was singing about birds and hanging out with Chris Martin at the V Festival. And I didn't really like her at first. I kind of dismissed her as another... Because that was, in the early noughties, there was a lot of female pop stars from America coming over. I know she's from Canada. North America. And I think I kind of pigeonholed her in that event. And it wasn't until her second album... Which is when I got on board. Although you have not chosen the songs I like.
I have. Oh, okay, that you like.
Because I think I even could play Try on guitar. And then, then I was like shocked to hear Loose. I was like, oh, this is not what I heard before. And I think at first I was like, oh, not my thing at all. Not a big Timbaland fan. But before I knew it, I was shaking my ass to Promiscuous Girl.
That's what she wanted.
Not on, again, dismissed from the Spotify playlist you gave me for some crazy reason.
I will get
I'm sure you'll tell me why. Yeah. So, but I've always liked her voice. I've always liked her style. I'm a fan of anyone who's a bit more eclectic. And of course, she features on football games, which is another Brucey bonus.
Which we will get into as well. So when I was putting together the playlist, yes, there's one or two bigger hits, but the reason I didn't include Promiscuous Girl and well, I'm Like a Bird, I actually don't like. I'm Like a Bird, I find irritating. As much as I enjoyed the music video, I liked the simplicity in it. Yeah, it felt very innocent, and she was obviously quite young, but I deliberately wanted to put forward some lesser known songs just to show, look, these are the lesser known ones and they're great. Why isn't she bigger?
True. And yeah, so he's got similar. I know that obviously Alanis had those two albums, but yeah, like Alanis, she became massive at the same age, around 21, 22, which was a lot of pressure on her. Should we go into it?
Yeah, let's go into it, because what I was going to say, which leads very nicely into my first two choices, I've done this in chronological order, basically, is that she wrote, I think, the whole Whoa Nelly first album by herself, which I did not know. And that is amazing. When you hear all the different types of instruments that are on there and the complexity of it, that's fucking impressive. And, so many people associate Loose with the genius of Timbaland. And of course, he is one of my favorite producers. So on that, I disagree. His fingerprints are all over it. But it's clearly her coming into it as well, and when they talk about it, they talk a lot about the chemistry, but let's get there. So my first pick is Turn Off the Light from Whoa Nelly. I think this is much catchier and less annoying than I'm Like a Bird. I really like the mix of acoustic guitar, the synths, and the sort of humming voices that open the song. It gives it this kind of mysterious quality. She's outdoors, what's going on. I really like how she harmonizes with herself, how she uses her mouth when she says, follow me, follow me, follow me. Fran, I like fast-talking Canadians. I hadn't even realised. I didn't realise I did this for Nelly as well. Jesus Christ. And when it's just the bridge, it's just her and acoustic guitar and drums before this kind of airplane sound comes in, instrumental section leading to the final version of the chorus. There's a lot going on. And Billboard said, Nelly Furtado sees no reason for separating rock guitars from pop melodies, from R&B hip-hop beats, from effervescent bossa nova. And that's why it's great. What do you think?
Well, my favourite fast-speaking Canadian is Robin Williams. Check him out, guys. If you know it. He does a great genie. So yeah, I absolutely fucking hated the song back in the day.
I was worried because you said that you didn't like this album, but yeah, no, okay, tell me more.
It was the follow me line. It used to make me cringe so much.
So interesting.
That's why I dismissed it, because I found both her singles really fucking annoying. And then listening to this again, I still don't like it, unfortunately. The video's insane. It's like set in Chinatown and the swamp for reasons unknown.
Her videos are kind of wild.
Yeah, the production makes a little bit more sense now. I knew that she was into trip hop and was doing hip hop back in the 90s. So, so when she did work later on with Timbaland, now it's not as much of a shock as I thought, because her past history was that before she did pop music.
Yeah, so, and one of her latest songs plays tribute to that era as well. Yeah.
So this was not for me at all. Sorry, Nelly.
That's okay. I hope the next one is, because I think this was also a single. At the very least, it had a video. Shit on the Radio, brackets, Remember the Days. I love the song. I love the curtailed guitar. I love the DJ sounds, mixed in with the radio sounds. I like how there's, she's quite grumpy on the verses, which makes sense, because she's saying, you like me till you heard my shit on the radio. Well, I hate to say, but pop ain't going solo. And yeah, my personal favourite, you like me till you see me on your TV. Well, if you're so low below, then why are you watching? It's boom, dissing the hipsters back in 2000. But the chorus is quite nostalgic, which makes sense, because it's the verses are nah, but then she's like, oh, remember the days when I was so eager to satisfy you. But, I'm moving on from that. So it tells a story with some very complex instrumentation and beats, and that's why I like it. Do you like it, Fran?
May I ask, is that flamenco guitar, or I hear? Was it some sort of Portuguese?
I mean, yeah. Don't ask me too. I had to look up Portuguese banjos for a song coming up later. I would say, yeah, it's curtailed flamenco guitar, like flamenco inspired. Yeah, because traditional Portuguese music, it's this genre called fado, and it's quite depressing. And actually, yeah, above my head, I have a traditional Portuguese guitar that belonged to my great grandfather. It's a 12-string guitar. It, doesn't maybe sound a million miles away, but it's not the same rhythms at all.
And she says in an interview that she doesn't like music to be put in genres. She does, and this proves that it's blends genres. It's got like an urban flow to it. It's got Latin influences. It's got a big pop chorus. So yeah, this basically shows off what she's about. I wasn't aware of the potty mouth version. To me, it was just called.
Really?
To me, it's just called On the Radio. I didn't realise it was called Shit on the Radio.
It's so much better saying you like me till you heard my shit on the radio.
But like watching and listening to again, I think Gwen Stefani stole a lot of image
Shtick.
and the sound, didn't she, from early Nelly, naughty Gwen. But again, yeah, it's better, but we still haven't reached the quality of folklore yet, which we will.
And we're not going to get there yet because I've thrown in a curveball as my next track. Clearly I just want to keep hitting Fran over the head with trip hop because I've picked The Harder They Come, which is actually a Paul Oakenfold song featuring Nelly Furtado and Tricky. And it is a very, I would say, classically trip hop song from 2002, so, a little bit later after its heyday. But if you told me, like, Nelly Furtado singing a trip hop song, I'd have been like, I can't see her fitting in. I think because she's so pop, yet also so multi-genre, because trip hop is so much more down-tempo, I wouldn't have thought it worked. But for me, this absolutely works. Her strong voice, the jarring rhythm, and tricky whispering underneath, I think it's great. And I had no idea that Paul Oakenfold could do trip hop. Fran?
I am so happy that you did hear Tricky's voice because I thought it might be the devil talking to me.
Is that the voices in your head? Is that what they sound like?
It is. Because Jesus, he's fucking scary on this song,
He is. We've just done trip hop, but him on Take It There, he's doing similar menacing whispers. He's good at that.
Never heard this before. Again, it's dance music you can't actually dance to. It's extremely dramatic. I love the dun pianos. I love the strings. I love her vocal. It would be a great album opener. I'm surprised it's like one of the last songs on the album. Silly Paul Oakenfold. This could be Uncle. This could be Massive Attack. I also set Paul Oakenfold with more house music, so it's interesting that he did this.
So okay, I'm pleasantly surprised that you like this. I thought this could go either way for whether you'd like it or not. But I wanted to put this in again to just show how many types of genres she can dip her fingers into, and it works.
Let's move on to Island of Wonder.
So I think this is the only folklore song I have picked. So yeah, devoed to hear that it's not one of your favourites. But yeah, I picked this one for a bit more lusophone knowledge as well. So had you heard of Caetano Veloso before?
Of course not.
Of course. Well, okay. Well, he is the master or one of the masters of Tropicalia. So you might know the Beck song Tropicalia, right? And that album Mutations is named after Os Mutantes, who are a band that is influenced by the Tropicalia movement. So I guess that's the most that it's come into the mainstream. But Tropicalia was a genre that was kind of an amalgamation of different Brazilian genres. So kind of more older stuff, but then more popular stuff, but also avant-garde stuff. So basically blending lots of different Brazilian traditional styles. But now it's associated with this other faction, which merged those with British and American psychedelia and pop rock. So yeah, as well as Beck, David Byrne, The Bird and the Bee, Devendra Banhart of Montreal cite it as an influence. And Nelly Furtado says that he's her biggest musical influence. And yeah, he's an interesting man. He's still going. He's featured on a lot of other artists' songs as well. And she wrote this because she wasn't feeling very inspired at the time, and she was talking to her mum on the phone. And they'd just been to the Azores because that's where her parents are from, and the Azores are this island archipelago, part of Portugal, off the coast of Africa, but a bit further towards Bermuda. And her mum apparently said, "Why don't you write a song called Island of Wonder?" And her DJ sampled a Caetano Veloso song called Tonada da Luna Lena, And then he got so on board that he came along, sang in Portuguese, sang in English, and yeah, she was absolutely delighted with that. It is not the kind of song that I would normally like, it isn't, a genre that I would actively seek out, but I really like how everything comes together. There's these kind of constant claps, which reminds me of actually flamenco rhythm, some kind of synth panpipes going on in the background. It sounds like water, which makes sense for Island of Wonder. So yeah, it's one on my chilled playlist, but there's not many songs on my chilled playlist that also have like DJ scratches and some whistling on it. And I think because Caetano Veloso is obviously like in his advanced age now, I like how his vocals sound a lot more vulnerable compared to her quite warm and trippy vocals. But then the switch is right at the end where she's like breathing and he's warbling absolute nonsense. So yeah, I just think it's a very original song.
I wouldn't have thought he was that age. I thought he was like another young Portuguese star.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'd never heard this before. I mean, I'd never heard any album tracks. I just heard the song Up Next, which is from the same album, and Try and Powerless, which I loved. So yeah, it's just, you put us on there because you wanted to showcase the Portuguese element as well, yeah?
Yes, but I also like the song.
It's a bit too Disney for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, normally I would hate that.
And yeah, I find the top line just quite bland. It doesn't do much for me.
Are you not moved by the water?
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of rain, but I guess not all bodies of water do it for me.
Not all islands are wonderful in your mind.
So yeah, this was a song I'd skip, unfortunately.
That's okay, because I think the next one, which actually is the other song I picked from Folklore, I didn't pick just one. I mean, Fran, I picked this thinking of you so we could have a little chat. Of course, you knew I had to include this one. It's Força, which was picked as the official anthem of the 2004 Euros, which were in Portugal, and we lost to Greece. I'm still devastated about it. I don't think it's the best song in the world, but it's quite lifting. It has quite a charming music video of like kids losing a ball and coming together to recuperate it, and Nelly's there looking happy. And I didn't realise that, again, like she wrote it and it's inspired by real life interaction. So she says that when she was touring in Portugal, people would frequently say to her, Força. So literally translated, it means strength. But when you use it as an expression, it means keep going or, kick ass. And she said, it's also associated with sports. I put a feminine twist on the idea of how you feel when you're watching your favourite team. When you tie internationality, it becomes pretty intense. So this is a happy song, a burst of energy. And there's this guy called Bela Fleck playing banjo on it. And then I was like, shit, is banjo a traditional Portuguese instrument? I don't know. And I looked it up. And yes, there are Portuguese banjos, but I don't think he is playing one of them. I wouldn't automatically associate banjos with Portuguese music. There are other string instruments that I would. But yeah, I think it's a really nice interpretation of I guess it's her taking some of her Portuguese heritage and making it poppier and making it more herself, and yeah, it was a really nice anthem for the Euros.
Yeah, although I smell bullshit, Nelly. I don't think he had football in mind at all when he wrote the song.
What?
Come on, that she did not know she was going to be asked to sing the anthem of the Portuguese Euros a year later. So I assume she just wrote Força, and then they just tied it, because a lot of times big football tournaments will have like a North American singer like Anastasia, and it's a song which has nothing to do with football. They kind of like shoehorn it into the football. So yeah, I don't believe she really thought about football. Obviously, I believe she sang it for the Portuguese people, but like I follow football, and no one in Portugal ever sings Força.
No, but it topped the charts in Portugal when it came out. So yeah.
But obviously, if they're hosting their first big tournament, they're gonna love anything associated at the way that in England, and we all had to buy 3 lines because it's a song. It's in England. It's coming home. But yeah, although. Was there a pushback that she's Canadian? Do they mind that she's not really
Yes, they do. And there's a lot of snobbery, actually, because she doesn't speak perfect Portuguese and she has a bit of an accent. And I find that, as a Portuguese immigrant, I find that really fucking snobby and annoying, actually, because if you're a Portuguese immigrant living abroad, chances are you're not going to speak it perfectly. So I think be proud that you've got someone who's willing enough to, like, talk about her heritage and sing some songs in Portuguese rather than be snooty about her having a bit of a weird accent.
This is true. And back to Força. Yeah, it's one hell of a catchy single. But yeah, it's a bit throwaway, isn't it? But yeah, but it brings back memories of the glory of seeing Greece beat Portugal and Ronaldo crying. So,
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad.
Okay, next pick. We are getting into the Loose era. It is Glow from Loose. And Loose, I didn't know, had 8 singles and sold 12 million copies worldwide. And as mentioned, so it was recorded with Timbaland in this kind of very intense setup in 6 weeks when she was living with her baby in a hotel. And I had no idea Chris Martin got involved at this stage. That, yeah, she met him and then found out that he was a big Timbaland fan and Timbaland was a big Coldplay fan. And there's this quote where she says, so Chris gets to the studio the next night and he was sort of jamming on his acoustic guitar and Timbaland is literally calling him Coldplay, not Chris. He's like, Coldplay, hey, check this out. Hey, Coldplay. And yeah, she said that before Loose, she wanted to do a pop album and she wanted to take a totally different approach because Whoa Nelly took 18 months to record as opposed to this 6 weeks. And Madonna's Ray of Light is back. She said that she used it as a template for Loose. She said that she was smooth but sexy, universal, epic, iconic. And I didn't know this, but Timbaland and Furtado fell out after the release of the album because of legal issues, and apparently because Timbaland didn't believe she was grateful enough. Fuck you, Timbaland, as much as I like you. But they've since made up, and, you know, I think it was kind of influential as to what happened next and why she, I think, wanted to be so much more independent. So I picked 2 songs from this album, and the first one isn't even a single. It's called Glow. And what I didn't realise that I saw in an interview, you know, there's this weird vocalizing at the beginning, right? And it's her hitting her neck, so she's like recording going ugh, and like hitting her neck. That's the vocal effect. And I mean, it's a song that's got the dirty synths and bass with this kind of tinkling piano in the background occasionally. And from an album that has 8 singles, and this is not a single, I still think it's an excellent song, and I really like the way she harmonizes with herself on it. Fran?
Hello. It's lucky that Chris Martin wasn't singing Godspeed Black Emperor. I had never heard this, although it feels like I have because that production is instantly this sound. So the reason I'm not a fan of Timbaland because I think he is far too hands-on. And I mean,
he literally puts his voice in everything. Yeah.
And like, so in another 10 years, I think that era is going to sound so fucking dated. It'll be like Stock Aitken Waterman because all his tracks have to have his weird ad-libs he does. His and his like his dirty simps and that sort of like beat loops.
But I love it.
Yeah, but it's just the same. And you know, this is a guy who tried to leave out of Duran Duran and made the worst Duran Duran album of all time.
Right, here we go. Here's the beef. Of course, if it wasn't going to be Depeche Mode, there's a Duran Duran link. Yeah, all right, go on, Fran. Air your heartbreak.
I mean, at first I thought, yeah, fair enough, guys. You want to be big. Timbaland creates gold, and then he does Duran Duran, and he creates absolute shit. But yeah, so because of that production, it taints Glow. It wasn't the greatest track I've heard of that era. I believe she calls punk hop. Is that what she calls? Yeah, I believe that's what she calls this album. So yeah, not for me. I preferred the other tracks on the album and Loose.
Well, one of them is my next pick. So I did not pick Promiscuous Girl. I picked Man Eater, and I will tell you for why. Because I remember watching this video for the first time. I remember her coming on, taking a top off, like not off, but you know, wearing like a sort of a tank top. And the fucking bass comes in and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, she's back. This is totally different. And I was just absolutely blown away. And I just felt like I wanted to include Glow as an example of like, wow, you know, this song is of a similar ilk, not even a single, but still as good. But I had to include either Man Eater or Promiscuous Girl. And that's why I went for this one, even though I absolutely love Promiscuous Girl and the interplay between the two of them. But yeah, the synth bass again contrasted with the drums, her voice, the catchy chorus. I really like as well how in the later choruses there's this kind of arpeggio synth going do 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 do, you know, kind of adding more. And I don't think I'd ever really paid attention to the fact that in the chorus, you know, you have these like very heavy drums, but you have this chorus of people as well, which I presume it's her voice and Timbaland's voice saying a bit nicer than that, but yeah, thank you, Fran. And I've put, in modern parlance, her vocals are serving. You know, she's singing high, she's singing low. I like the fact that, so the song's called Man-Eater, but whoever this person is, because she switches between talking about me and her, it doesn't feel like she's judging her. It's just like, yeah, that's the way she is. She's got everyone wrapped around her finger. And, you know, what I presume is the album version, because I don't remember this in the single, but there's this kind of outro where she's going, she's a man-eater. I really like that as well, and the drums are just great. But I don't think you like it as much as I do.
So when it came out, I was sad it wasn't a cover of the Hall & Oates classic.
Of course. And
I didn't like it because I thought, this is not Nelly Furtado.
Yeah.
This isn't Powerless. What on earth? Where's my Força go?
Yeah. Where's my Força go?
But this song grew on me. And I do like it. I do like the sleaze. It's actually quite stripped down, really. It's just literally a beat and that keyboard bass, and that's it. Apart from some weird noises in the background.
But I mean, I think the drums are the best thing about
tribal,
it.
Yeah. The drums make my feet work. Sorry. Guilty, guys.
It makes it sound like you had some kind of wasting disease where you lost the use of your feet and then suddenly
the power of Timberland. Thank you.
But you know what, right? So for me, this is uni era for me. So 2006 was my first and second year of uni, and I feel like this was the album before Future Sex Love Sounds, and makes so much sense when you realise that I guess this was Timbaland starting with that and then continuing with Justin Timberlake. And I'm like, I listened to Sexy Back way more than Man-Eater or Promiscuous Girl at uni, and I'm annoyed about this.
Really, I thought he did that first. I thought Timberlake was like...
No. And yeah, just going back to feminism, because of course, there was a lot of like, oh, she's trying to be sexy. And again, there's this very nice sort of summary of it. So it says that Furtado was immediately and notably one of the first Canadian artists to experience public slut shaming, you know, after Morissette.
What, because of this video? Because I mean, she's wearing a white t-shirt. That's not.
I know, but she's taking her top off. Like it's when you think about I'm Like a Bird, she's wearing like a long sleeve red top. She's got her hair tied up in a bun. Like it's all very innocent. But here it's like So this journalist who I've put as young. The media focused, on the example that she was setting, the tarting up of a Canadian good girl, romantic relationships between her and her producers, her sexual orientation, her clothing, her midriff. Because, that was a lot of focus. I remember it's just like, whoa, you can see her belly. You couldn't see that before. To continue the quote, and all kinds of superficial sexist crap that had nothing to do with her music, what her music meant, or what strength it might give to other women struggling with the very same gender dichotomies and double standards. And my mind was blown that she was a mother. That she really, it's like, what a big fuck you to kind of traditional notions of motherhood of like, this has happened, I'm going to keep working, going to keep them alive. And actually, it's quite positive that I've gained some weight because now I feel much sexier. And that was totally, I mean, I don't know if that was the narrative she was pushing, although I did see interviews from that area where she does talk about it. But it's like, I feel that the way that this song is seen and everything else, she hooked up with Timbaland, the cool urban artist. She had to be sexy and that was it. And it's like, she was never forced to do this. She wanted to do this, and it was received way too negatively, in my opinion.
So I watched all of her videos back to back, and in the first video, she's basically in a bikini covered in mud. And that's 2001, so I don't know how, so how is this any way worse? And like, she shows off her stomach. It's 2006, for fuck's sake.
No, but these were the naughties were like this. The naughties were very I mean, when you think about how Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears were written about, how I think I saw a tweet today which was like, it was just absolutely acceptable to like paparazzi take pictures, upskirt pictures of women coming out of cars. It was this kind of dual like fascination, but hatred. Whereas now, that just doesn't happen in the same way anymore. My next pick is Give It To Me. So it's a Timbaland song from Shock Value with Justin Timberlake and Nelly Furtado. I listen to this song all the time and I don't know why. It starts really weirdly. It's like almost like Timbaland talking to himself. Then this fantastic rhythm comes in, but it starts off beat. Like Nelly comes in off beat. So you're like, what is happening? And it's a bit of a diss verse. she's saying, I'm the type of girl that'll look you dead in the eye. I'm the Wonder Woman. Let me go get my ropes. I'm a supermodel and mummy. And Amnesty International got bankrupt. I'm on top. You love my ass and my abs and the video called Promiscuous. And my favourite, my style is meticulous. And then suddenly we're in the chorus. Complete change, talking about and then being in the club and being really cool people. You know, Timbaland and Justin come back and they're also being very sort of sarky. So Justin's bit is hilarious because he's saying, like, sitting on the top, it's hard to hear you from way up here. I saw you trying to act cute on TV, let me just clear the air. We missed you on the charts last week. Damn, that's right, you wasn't there. If sexy never left, then why's everybody on my shit? Don't hate on me just because you didn't come up with it. So it's this very bizarre song where you have these verses that are just like, fuck you. And then suddenly Nelly comes in to be like, if you see us in the club. And it's quite lush. And she harmonizes really well with herself. And the fact that it's called Give It To Me, I feel like it could mean so many different things. It could be sexual. It could be like, give me the criticism, I can take it. Or it could be, give it to me because whatever you throw at me, I'm Teflon. So I know it's a weird pick, but I really like it. What do you think?
I haven't heard this for 15 years.
But you were, okay, so you knew this song.
Yeah, it's Team Timbaland. It has him gurning in the video, as per usual.
It's a weird video.
He likes a lot of looks to camera, doesn't he, with Timbaland? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got the it sounds a little bit like Maneater in production. It's got the ad libs, it's got the self-referencing, but it doesn't have the magic of the songs from Loose, in my opinion. And yeah, I was about to say I prefer the single with Katy Perry, but it turns out that's on his follow-up album, Shock Value 2. So yeah, this is not for me. I think that Nelly was better without. Moving on to the next decade of Nelly.
Indeed we are. And so this song is called Big Hoops, brackets, the bigger the better. And I think if someone asked me what my life motto was, I think this would be it. And off record, I said to Fran that like this almost feels cultural to me because I feel like in Portugal, hoop earrings are quite normal. But growing up in England, they were seen as, quotes, chavvy, right? And I think as someone stuck between two identities, I deliberately didn't wear hoops for quite a while because I felt like, it's almost like I wasn't adapting. And my ex-boyfriend used to say that I looked more Portuguese when I wore hoop earrings, which I think is kind of true. So I absolutely love seeing a Portuguese artist absolutely taking this on board. Even though she's actually talking about it more in terms of the music she used to listen to back in the 80s and 90s. So this song is about that, about the R&B and hip-hop songs that were big when she was a teenager, quotes, wearing these big hoop earrings and big jeans and a backpack. And it's full of references. I've taken a screenshot of someone who's literally time-stamped the YouTube video with all the different ones. I will go into it if you want me to. If you've done the same
thing.
We can get into it. And I can't deny it sounds a bit like Timbaland. And one of the songs she references is The Rain by Missy Elliott and Timbaland. But I think it's a really good song. And just as you think, like, okay, this is maybe a little bit, Timbaland-esque, she then says, oh, I thought the song was over and it wasn't. And then it goes into drum and bass. You're like, whoa, okay, you're throwing a lot into this. And I'd seen the cover image for the video, but never seen the video, and I just saw it, and it's kind of mad because she's wearing a lot of hoop earrings. Okay, it is honestly, I have ADHD, but even I was overwhelmed with how quickly it jumped from frame to frame. Swarovski are the clear promoters because there's like all these close-ups of the swan. But what I enjoyed about it was that there's a lot of Native Americans or Native Canadians dancing. So again, it's like she's talking about like the culture she grew up with. She's talking about kind of these big hoops and bringing that on. I think it ties it quite nicely together. Fran, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting video, although I have no recollection of this happening whatsoever.
You don't remember Nelly Furtado on stilts?
I don't, but also apparently this was a hit in the UK as well, apparently, looking up the old internet. So yeah, it references always classic hip-hop tunes, but it feels more of her improvising in a studio than an actual song, if that makes sense. Like, it's a lot of her just repeating phrases again and again around a groove. There's a bit of auto-tuning, which I'm never fond of. So yeah, it's very loose.
Oh, nice.
But Yeah, I like the last section when the BPM speeds up. That bit's more enjoyable. Apart from that, it's a bit irritating, unfortunately, for me.
Irritating.
So,
That's strong words.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not a fan of big hoops. Although earring wise, couldn't give a shit.
I know. Yeah, I can understand that, but yeah, no, I think it's very layered and. Because I do like the Timbaland production, and this is clearly inspired by it, I'm on board.
So, to her final album.
Yeah, so, yeah, Big Hoops was from The Spirit Indestructible, 2012. This next song, Cold Hard Truth, is from The Ride, 2017, so 5 years later. And there is a lot going on here, but I think she pulls it off. Again, I would say Timbaland inspired with dirty bass in the verses combined with some synths, but the chorus is much poppier. And I kind of picked this as my last one because it was the most recent one, but I feel like it is the most Nelly Furtado song in a way. Okay, maybe there's some acoustic guitars missing, but I think it's catchy. I think she brings in a lot of elements. There's even some cowbell. And looking at the lyrics, it's like, this could very well be, it could be about a relationship, but it also feels like it's her talking about her collaborators, because it's basically like the cold hard truth is I can basically do it by myself. And one thing that I didn't mention, and I'll mention it now, when she was recording Loose, she said she was obsessed with electro rock. Quote, I love Block Party and Death from Above. These were young people making rock and alternative that was also steeped in the rhythmic knowledge of a world with hip-hop in it. Timbaland and I were both listening to this stuff. I really wanted it to have that kind of energy, so we were doing this like a garage band, writing and recording as we went, and sometimes mixing and doing vocals. And I think that comes across to me here as well. What did you think?
So when the Rider came out, I heard it was a pop-focused album. And I was thinking, oh, interesting. Is it going to be like, folklore? And then I didn't like anything on it, and I was a little bit hurt.
Hurt? Strong.
I was
Nelly,
a little bit hurt.
Come and give some words of consolation to this poor man.
Because she kept going on about, wanting to make a melting pot of music and trying lots of new things. But it seems like she hasn't really reinvented herself since Loose. The first three albums, each album was quite a different change, And I think that she, like I said, it still echoes Timbaland. It's like, well, that was 10 years ago, but I think it'd be nice if she tried something else by now. So, again, the repeating the last word of each verse I found irritating. I don't know if you enjoyed that. Did you enjoy that?
I enjoy it, yeah. I don't mind it, yeah.
It has a Prince vibe to it with the keyboard, but it's lacked the Prince pop hook, so it's like poor man's Prince. It just lacked the magic of early Nelly, and I think it would be maybe if she tried to change the genre again, she might something else could come out of her maybe, because she's got a lot of talent, but I don't see it on this album, sadly.
Yeah, I guess Loose was such a concept album, right? Yeah, her first three albums had more of a thread running through it, whereas I think her later work, it is basically her throwing everything but the kitchen sink at it. I don't mind that, because I think what I'm not such a big fan of Woe Nelly or folklore is when it gets a little bit too acousticy and a little bit too earnest. I prefer dirty bass Nelly as a general rule, even though I really love Turn Off the Light and Remember the Days, because it blends so many genres. So I think with the last two songs that I picked, I like them because they blend so many genres, and because I like the Timbaland production, it doesn't bother me that it sounds Timbaland-esque, but I can understand if you do like folklore and other stuff that she hasn't quite gone back to that, I think.
But I'm sure she's going to release music soon. It's been 5 years. It's been
5 years, right? But the thing is, so she had a kid just before Loose, and I think has split up from the father. But she has two more kids, but there's not. I don't think a father's been publicly claimed. And there's in the Larry King interview that I really recommend anyone checking out. It is an artist talking about their work, and it's super interesting and not at all what you'd expect from your standard pop star. Larry's basically like, who's your husband or who you married to, in this very kind of old-fashioned way, and she's like, I'm not married at the moment. So, I'm sure that if she, making no presumptions, but if she's not with someone but has 3 kids, I'm sure she's been busy, just like any parent would be. But yeah, I would really love to see Nelly come back.
And her firstborn will now be like 20 years old, so
Yeah. Oh,
She could even be a new guitar player.
We're old. Anyway. So following the trip through the discography, do you think Nelly is underrated? Nelly Furtado, I should say. I do like the rapper Nelly, but
True.
this is Nelly Furtado, yeah.
So coming into this podcast, I was expecting to be excited by listening back to some Nelly Furtado. I've not listened to her for a long, long time. I thought Alanis would be a struggle, and sadly to say, I preferred Alanis to Nelly, which was unexpected. But is it because of the tracks you've given me? Because 4 or 5 songs I know are not on this playlist. So maybe a different selection could have given me a different feeling. But with the songs you've presented to me today, I would say that she isn't underrated, unfortunately, because she sold 40 million albums, which is a lot. So it's not as if she's hiding under a rock. Many people have heard of Nelly Furtado. I don't know how many albums she sells nowadays, but yeah. So sadly, yeah, on listening to these 10 songs, I would probably say I like 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I was more focused, I think, on showcasing all eras and showcasing the lesser known songs. Of course I could have put I'm Like a Bird and Promiscuous Girl and Say It Again or whatever it is, but I was like, that's too easy. That's too easy, and that's not the brief here. I think the only the true proper concession that I put was putting Força on there because I thought you might enjoy the football chat. Yeah, I think given your particular criticism of the songs that you don't like, I can understand that. If you're not such a big fan of Timbaland's production, which I am, and it runs through a lot of these songs, I can understand that you would think that she's underrated. But I would say that most people haven't heard any of her songs since Loose. I think there's some really great songs on there, and even the lesser known songs from the Woe Nelly and Folklore era are very good too. So to me, she is underrated despite having the 14 million something listeners or whatever it is, because I really think that she is too pigeonholed for who she is, and she's not even like a pop star or just a musician. She is an artist steeped in many genres, in many styles, with a global outlook, blending all sorts of genres. Not many people who are as popular as she is are doing that and doing it as effectively and bridging that. So yeah, to me, I think until she has that reputation, I will continue saying she is underrated.
Well, I hope to see her live. I'm sure I will, because she's still 43,
something like that. Yeah, I'd imagine.
Still, plenty of life.
An absolute MILF, even if I do say so myself.
Indeed, yes. Well, she says that she doesn't mind the ladies too, so who knows what can happen.
Oh, well, that was a bit. Yeah, she said, what was it, heterosexual but open-minded?
Yeah.
I think that's probably me as well. So yeah, come on, Nelly, give me a call. Let's chat Portuguese banjo music.
And then have a lovely game of football. Força.
Força, yeah, indeed.
So thank you for listening, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, hello again, and thank you so much for getting this far. So, is Alanis Morissette overrated? Is Nelly Furtado underrated? You can let us know on social media. We are on Instagram at @overunderatedmusicpod, and we are on Twitter at OUmusicpod. So, give us a follow. Also, subscribe to this podcast. Tell, 2 friends. And see you next time, guys. Well, maybe not see, but you'll hear us next time. Anyway, bye for now.